The UK has become a hotbed for religious extremism. For the purposes of impartiality and avoiding the kind of hysterical commentary you might see in other places, I'm going to stick strictly to the facts in this video. The first fact is undeniably simple. Due to government policy, supported, I might add, by both sides of politics, Britain has experienced rapid, sustained levels of immigration over the last few decades. As you can see in this chart from the UK's Office for National Statistics, since the 1990s, the average net migration has significantly increased each decade. Prior to that, since the 1930s, it was relatively flat or even negative. This is the background policy failure. And then you have the completely separate issue of illegal migration. The BBC recently reported that in the year to 29th of September, 33,556 people had arrived in the UK by small boat. That's 721 more than at the same point in 2022, the highest year on record. This is an ongoing crisis, a side effect, perhaps, of a country already seen as having weak borders. Illegal migrants clearly feel they can enter the UK with relative ease, despite the repeated tough talk from Westminster. Now here's where British people are told to shut up and pretend everything is fine. Obviously, rapidly bringing in people from disparate cultures and religious backgrounds will cause at least some tension in society. That's not saying people from different cultures and religions can't get along. In fact, most people do. But we have to be realistic and admit that for some percentage of society, rightly or wrongly, constant, sustained, increasing immigration will cause tensions. To pretend otherwise is just an astonishing act of political wishful thinking. This would be true of any country. It's not some unique British failing, and it's certainly not about labelling any group as bad. If, for instance, China suddenly saw a rapid rise in Australians migrating to Beijing, this would certainly cause political and social issues. That's not saying Australian people are bad or that they are a threat. It's simply acknowledging that their culture is not the same as China's, and the pace of that change would be a serious cultural shock to many Beijingers. Human nature and political reality don't suddenly go on holiday just because we want them to. And what happens when these social tensions are allowed to fester? Well, they spill over into political action, and in some cases, violence. Of course, in the UK, like many Western nations, we have seen a dramatic increase in pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel protests, which have often become heated, intimidating, and violent. You can't turn on the news without seeing a major street blocked by people screaming about a long-standing conflict they suddenly decided to care about. The violence isn't always limited to the streets. Consider the group Palestine Action. They took the rather extreme step of breaking into a Royal Air Force base and damaging 2 military aircraft. The severity of their action, politically motivated criminal damage aimed at state infrastructure, is exactly why the UK government took the unprecedented step of officially proscribing them as a terrorist organisation in July 2025. And now all this political and social disharmony has come to a head with the recent terrorist attack on a Jewish synagogue in Manchester, which left 2 Jewish people dead and 3 others seriously injured. A 35-year-old British citizen of Syrian descent, Jihad Al-Shamie, drove a car at people outside the Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation Synagogue during Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, before attacking bystanders with a knife. He was shot dead by police at the scene. According to Oxford Languages, the perpetrator's first name, Jihad, is a loaded term. It means, in one context, a struggle or fight against the enemies of Islam and for the protection of the Islamic community. But of course, the politically sensitive definition is that it simply means the spiritual struggle within oneself against sin. Either way you care to interpret the meaning, Al-Shamie has now definitively met his maker and won't be committing any more acts of terror in the UK. One problem brutally solved. And so the UK remains the country that keeps turning a blind eye to its own deliberate failures in immigration and integration policy, pretending the problem is merely one or two bad apples, not an entire rotten orchard. The truth is, the current political establishment is simply too terrified of the inevitable, honest conversation about securing their borders and protecting their citizens.